Tyler Perry's movies were a very important part of my childhood. I watched them a lot while I was growing up, but the first Tyler Perry series I ever watched was For Better or For Worse. Till this day, For Better or Worse still stands as Tyler Perry's best series to me. I started watching The Haves and the Have-Nots. I got halfway through season 1 when it started losing me in terms of plot, character, and everything. It wasn't bad, but it just wasn't as interesting. I think it was because it was quite a jump from For Better or Worse, which was like more comedy than being serious, and then The Haves and the Have-Nots, which was extremely serious with little sprinkles of comedy. I don't know why, but it just never, sat well with me. And then we had The Oval. Oh my goodness, The Oval is Tyler Perry's biggest sin in my book right now. I started that with all the hope in my heart, and it died on the first few minutes of the first episode when they showed the fight between the president and his wife. I just thought, Tyler Perry started off at the highest level of his drama, and the acting from a lot of the characters was already abysmal. I didn't think I could push through, but I tried. It's Tyler Perry series. It's usually what I use to enjoy myself, like relax and watch. But all the characters just felt dry and terrible, and it was also taking the serious route, so I couldn't even use comedy to heal the wounds this series was causing inside of me. Then there were Sistas that I also tried to watch, but I will talk about the curse of Tyler Perry's writing later on. But all these three suffer from that curse, which is why For Better or Worse still holds as one of Tyler Perry's best series in my book. It had so many seasons, it had so much unnecessary drama that drove me crazy when I was watching it, but there was never a moment where I felt that I wasn't enjoying the series. Even when I was annoyed at some decisions, I was still laughing, I was still enjoying it. The jokes, I think I'm a cheap person to do a comedy show with because everything works on me most times, but the comedy was on point. Marcus!
It's weed! It's the gateway drug! Next thing you know, he'll be doing anything for a rock!
That line is still stuck in my head amongst many others. I loved the series, and for so long, nothing came close until I started watching If Loving You Is Wrong. I want to keep this video as coherent as possible, so I'm going to break it down in terms of how I want to address the issues and my likes and dislikes with this series. We're going to first look at Brad and Marcy's relationship, and because of that, we're also going to look at Alex and Randall. Then we're going to look at Esperanza and Steven and the drama surrounding their relationship in correlation to Eddie's character. And then we're going to move to the final part of this video where we discuss that abysmal, and I mean that in every sense of the word, that abysmal series finale that was season 5. When it comes to Tyler Perry's series, there's always more drama than there is sense of plot, because plots can change the more you go along. I don't know what it is about his series, but characters can appear out of the blue. Characters that were being used in the first season might just disappear the next season, and you are lucky if you even get an explanation as to where they went. Sometimes you do, but then it doesn't add up, and other times you just don't get any explanation as to where they went. They are just gone. Entire storylines can be dropped in the Tyler Perry series, and it's like, oh well, let's move on. But like I said with Better or Worse, whenever it was going to the point where the drama was too much, there was always the comedy, there was always the jokes that just kept me going. And I don't remember this series so well, but I think the actors on For Better or Worse are one of the most natural actors he has had in any series except The Haves and the Have-Nots. The actors at least tried. Marcus and Angela, when they were arguing, when they were angry, when they were in love, when they were happy. Then there was Joseph and his girlfriend. The acting always had a way of feeling natural. but there was something unnatural about the acting in Sisters and the acting in the Oval. I don't know if it's all the acting or if it's maybe the dialogue that just feels disconnected from reality. Whatever it is, his recent works don't feel as smooth as For Better or Worse was. But even though the acting wasn't the best on If Loving You Is Wrong, I was ready to ignore it because the drama he was setting up for this series was peppering that thing inside of me that just loves chaos, and I was ready for it. Because the beginning of the first episode shows a woman kind of like in an intimate situation with a guy, only for you to find out that this man is married and so is she. I could smell disaster and I loved it.
What you doing here? Oh,
now you can't speak English.
So let's just get into it and start discussing the characters so I can unwrap the story. We're going to first look at the female friend group, which consists of Alex, Kelly, Esperanza, Natalie, and to an extent, Marcy. There's an interesting dynamic I kind of noticed when I started watching this series with this friend group. It was already expressed explicitly that Marcy wasn't a usual part of their group. Like, she joined later on when the bonds between the first four had already solidified, so she was more like the odd one out. But even in the original four, there was a bit of tilt in terms of respect within the group, but I feel like they placed Alex at the head of their group. When the cheating is first exposed to Marcy, she goes to confront Randall and it escalates into a fight, to which she says something about him sleeping with the woman next door. Someone hears that and tells it to Alex's husband, and Brad thinks it has to be Kelly. Ignoring the fact that it's his house that's next door, I found that funny, and I still find that funny. The news somehow gets from Brad to Esperanza, and Esperanza also believes that the woman next door is Kelly, and that Kelly is sleeping with Marcy's husband. And she tells Natalie, who is of course shocked at Kelly's behavior. They go to bash Kelly about her behavior and her betraying Marcy by sleeping with her husband. They claim that Kelly should feel more understanding of the situation because her boyfriend just recently cheated on her, so why would she go and do the same thing to Marcy? And they went on and on until Kelly finally set the record straight.
And second of all, I don't live next door to them.
And their response wasn't the same indignation they had when they heard it was Kelly. When they thought it was Kelly, it was rather,
oh my God, Lord have mercy.
And my thought and why I feel like there's a hierarchy in their friendship is, even after they finally confronted Alex, they were still trying to somewhat pamper her. You went off on Kelly, and then you're trying to take it easy on Alex. Let's list Kelly's faults. Like, if she was sleeping with Randall, Kelly is single as of this moment. Kelly is friends with Marcy. Even though Marcy isn't as ingrained in their group as the other three, she is still friends with Marcy, and so she is betraying Marcy's friendship by doing what she's doing. Alex is married, so not only is she wrecking one home, she's wrecking her own home too. That is 2 counts. Both Alex and Kelly are Marcy's friends, so they owe her loyalty in that respect. If Kelly had been the one sleeping with Randall, they were right to be angry with her because she was breaking Marcy's trust. When it comes to Alex wasn't just breaking Marcy's trust, she was breaking her household because she was married. Yet, when they find out that she, the married woman, is the one that's cheating, their reaction is softer compared to when they thought the single woman was the one doing the cheating. I don't know, just put something in my head like they idealized or kind of like to give Alex special treatment. And it carries on for a lot of the series. It happens very often where they try to pamper Alex or soften the blow of the consequences from her own actions. I never understood it, but I hope I have explained it. because we are moving from here to the couples involved and why this series has so much potential for me in the drama that it was feeding me.
Open your gift. Open your gift.
Like I said before, when we meet Alex and Randall, they are together, but it is later exposed that Randall is married to Marcy and Alex married to Brad. There is something that happens to me when I watch a series, and it's something that a lot of Tyler Perry series, since for better or worse, have not been able to bring out of me. It's that as I watch, I like to think on what might happen. It gets me excited for watching the next episode and the next episode just to see if I'm right. The most important thing in a story for me is the amount of involvement I can have in it. If you can't be involved in the story, you're not going to enjoy the story. And a story for me doesn't have to be a masterpiece for me to be involved. It just has to have an interesting plot. If the plot is something I can get behind, I can overlook a lot of things. Character failures, I can overlook plot holes as long as the plot remains engaging. And this is one thing that always loses me when it comes to Tyler Perry's series. The plot is never engaging. The plot of Sistas, it was interesting at first, but then it began to become so dragged out, boring and uninteresting. I don't want to get into it in this video, but I was really enjoying Sistas until I started thinking to myself, Tyler Perry is doing it again. He is just wasting potential storylines to fall for drama instead of using the drama to feed the storylines that already exist. So once I saw that she and Randall were married to other people, my head immediately created the most chaotic storyline in which Brad and Marcy would end up being together and happy, while Randall and Alex would end up miserable. So as they went on, before the cheating was revealed to Marcy, we kind of got like a glimpse into their friendship, how much Marcy trusted and loved Alex, because in the whole group of 5, Marcy was closer to Alex, and it was because of that closeness that Marcy was welcomed into their group of 4. So she was closer to Alex, and that closeness even made her smell Alex's perfume on Randall's clothes, and it did not even occur to her to say this is the woman he might be cheating with.
I was hoping that this is your perfume, because then my mind wouldn't wander. I could just let it go. So just please tell me this is yours.
That is how far her trust for Alex was. And the same with Brad. Brad saw Randall as a best friend. There's trust between him and Randall. But aside from those 2 friendships, they also show the closeness between Brad and Marcy, which further fed my idea that if anything, once the cheating was exposed, Brad and Marcy were going to find their way together. Obviously, because they're going to grieve together, then maybe their friendship turns into love. It happened in another series I was watching, Falling for Temptation, where they were friends and their spouses cheated on each other and then they ended up together in the end. That's what I was hoping would happen here. And to my luck, of course it did.
You invade my privacy.
Well, honey, you've been invading some whore.
Now, I'm about to give this series the highest praise. I don't want it to be put in the context of, oh no, there are other series that have done this. This is not the first time I have seen this. I'm giving this series the highest praise as Tyler Perry's work in terms of how it was structured, how it was written, how it was handled, because compared to his following works in Sistas, The Oval, Ruthless, this is still one of the best construction of a drama in his regimen, if that is even the word that I have seen.
It's you. Excuse me? You are Peppa.
What makes this, and this is me overreading into things, but I do this all the time, so bear with me. What makes this really stand out for me is how they broke this revelation into parts. Of course, we saw the cheating at the start, but then the moment that Marcy found out was also around the same time that Kelly figured out that Alex was Peppa. the name that Marcy gave the entire group as the woman who her husband was sleeping with. I want to praise the dialogue in both cases. Let's act like both cases were happening at the same time instead of apart. So Marcy in this scene is the wrong party, and Randall is the person that did the wrong, and he's on the defensive. Now Marcy is going at Randall, and I so love how they wrote both Marcy and Kelly's reaction. Marcy is going at Randall, and Randall, being Randall, is trying to turn it around to Marcy, and she had, again, the highest praise. She had the best through his stuff.
Since when did you start going through my emails?
Since when did you start with this whore? You are not gonna turn this around on me.
Because this is something she has been suspecting for weeks, if not a month, I'm not sure. Asking him, and he has been making it her fault all this time, and she has been taking it. But now that she has proof that there is someone else, she isn't taking anything from him. But it doesn't only show Marcy's stand, it sort of starts to reveal Randall as the manipulator that he is then portrayed as for the rest of the series. Because while he did cheat, he tries to rein it in as Marcy should be feeling bad that she went through his stuff. And when Marcy begins to offend this woman that he started the relationship with, Pepper, when she begins to insult her, Randall has the audacity to ask Marcy, his wife, to respect the woman that he is cheating on her with.
You were with some whore?
Why'd you call her that?
Excuse me, sir? That also gives you an insight as to who Randall is. And I loved the entire dialogue. I loved Marcy not stepping down. And then you take that to Kelly confronting Alex about the situation. Kelly is smart. She immediately figures out that Alex is Pepper. She doesn't step around it. She doesn't try to sugarcoat it. She doesn't try to sit Alex down and have this intimate, okay, talk to me, I'm your girl kind of reaction. She immediately goes, how can you do such a thing? Which I think also separated Kelly from the rest of her girlfriends. I already mentioned it in the beginning how the other two, although harsh, they were trying to be more gentle than harsh, but Kelly just gave it to her. She not only confronted Alex, she didn't allow her bring up excuses, because that was the first thing it shot off in her mind to do. And just like with Randall, anytime Alex brought up an excuse as to why she did it, why she kept it going on, Kelly immediately shuts her down. She didn't allow her to cry her way out of the situation, saying I was hopeless, it was overwhelming, I couldn't control it. She didn't give her the chance to do such a thing.
He seduced me.
No, don't you dare. Don't you dare act like you are the victim in this situation that blame it all on him.
I love this because, as I said, it showed the character of some people. After this scene, I kind of started looking at Alex different. I don't know what it is. And the fact that her default always became tears, I couldn't look at Alex and think, nah, she's an innocent, seduced married woman. I saw her at the same level as Randall.
Because she thinks I'm a whore and a slut. Because I got weak.
But unlike Randall, she had a different approach where she didn't look manipulative or narcissistic, because she looked like she actually cared about the people she was hurting, but she didn't just care enough to stop, which made her better than Randall, but not different in my eyes. And like I said, it also set up Kelly's personality, as in she liked to tell things straight. Tyler Perry doesn't have consistent characters, so believe me when I say that he forgot this part of Kelly down the line, but let me just appreciate it while I'm still on it. Unlike the others, Kelly didn't have this skewed perception of Alex. She saw them all on the same platform. And while I am still riding this wave, we're going to move on to the second part of this drama, which was the aftermath of finding out about the relationship. Another thing that was handled, the thing about Tyler Perry's dramas that begin to disappoint me in the aftermath of the revelation. I love that the first thing Marcy did was run to Randall, but consequently after that, things were rapid fire. It wasn't that it took another 2 weeks for Brad to find out. Marcy printed all the emails. This lady is crazy. And took it to Brad as a birthday gift. What I also like about this is, and again, I might be giving Tyler Perry too much of a compliment, I like the way he showed Brad handling Marcy appearing at his party drunk. I think it showed just again how much he did care for Marcy, because throughout he has always been attentive of her and talking to her whenever he saw that she was feeling bad. And then she appears at his party drunk, and he doesn't immediately try to get her out of there or call her out, but rather ask her if she's okay and thank her for the gift. Of course, he didn't know what gift it was, but because of that gift, Brad then finds out. Brad and Marcy then try to get back at Randall and Alex by trying to sleep together. Again, I like how they handled this, because it kind of felt like in that moment, even they realized that as hurt as they were, this isn't what they wanted to do. I'm praising the dialogue because I love conversations that get me involved. And one of the biggest things that pushed that for me was when Marcy gave Randall the divorce papers. That conversation, even though it still had the hint of Tyler Perry's weird dialogues in it, it had so much reality to it that I started to imagine potential for a series to be good. It was deceptive, but it's still my favorite scene. Marcy gives the papers to Randall, and this selfish man is bringing up all the excuses. I didn't do it to hurt you. I love you. I will never sign this. And Marcy speaks to him. And the conversation they have from Marcy's end, because I can't stand Randall, is so realistic, where she tells him how he has hurt her all these months, lying to her, and now he's hurting her again by not wanting to set her free. Then she challenges him and asks him a question I ask every cheater I see on TV that tries to defend cheating, either male or female.
You think I don't see hot men? You don't think I have clients that want to screw me? You don't think I can walk out that door and get a man?
And she asks him, why did you think I didn't?
Because we're married.
Wrong. Because we were married.
The reason this meant a lot to me, again, I am over complimenting this series, is because I have watched a lot of movies with cheaters in it. And anytime they open their mouth, the defense is always killing me. I love this scene because it mentions so much of all the things I usually thought about whenever I heard cheaters on TV shows argue their point. Like, yes, maybe you were lonely. Yes, maybe your spouse seemed to be changing. But if that was your reason, that could also have been their reason. Whatever you think is a reason to do what you did could also have been their reason to do what they did. But because they were your spouse, they decided to respect you instead.
You are not worth the marriage that this paper is printed on.
This 3-part breakdown is just me purely respecting the first 25 episodes of this series because of how much it looked like they were putting effort to make this series enjoyable. The third part comes from the birth of Alex's kid. Marcy carried this on her shoulders. The more Randall went on, the more you began to see his character. And as Marcy tried to hit him to push him to divorce her, you could see that she was still internally hurt. Marcy was changing in the sense that she was trying to do everything possible to force Randall out of her life, and Brad was changing in the sense that he was becoming bitter and vindictive towards Alex. Both of them were going through crisis. My part of the story begins to build, in which she and Brad are broken about their marriage and also try to take revenge on them by getting together. Brad and Marcy are now in a dilemma for season 3, in which Brad has decided that he's going to go back to Alex and try and fix their marriage, but he also still has feelings for Marcy. And this is where one of my pet peeves with this show comes in. I did not like Randall's character. Randall is irritating and not the good kind. I will give the example of Cersei. She was one of those characters that I just hated to see her face on my screen, especially when it had anything to do with Tyrion. Cersei would always have this smile on her face that I wanted to smack off her face. But Cersei, while irritating, was not irritating, as in I understood her purpose, and she still felt like I'm using this word too much, but she still felt like a natural character, like a natural bad person. Randall has this cartoonish outlook to him. I can't take him seriously. I can't enjoy him even if he's being the villain, because he just looks like a cartoon setup.
What is that? What is that?
Sorry.
And I feel like that is a failure to a story that has so little jokes. If this was a comedy like For Better or For Worse, I am sure they would have given Randall a few lines to make him more bearable, at least if he could be some kind of comic relief. But Randall, I don't know how to explain it. He cheapened the story. So, when it comes to season 3, Brad moves in with Alex. Marcy had started falling for Brad, but Brad wants to give his marriage a chance. Brad was trying to make his marriage work, but Marcy constantly needing him put it in jeopardy. So he was in a place where he couldn't make himself say no. Whenever she called that she needed him, Brad would have to explain to Alex that Marcy is his friend and he can't just let her be by herself, even when he was suspecting that Marcy was doing it to piss Alex off. And I like that. I wish so much that they focused more on this, because it would be giving Alex a taste of her own medicine while taking away her control, because anytime she tried to show jealousy, Brad would be like, I just need you to give me time. I am still healing from what you did, but I'm promising you that I'm not doing what you think I'm doing, and Marcy is just my friend.
I know it's unfair,
It is.
but it's a whole nother thing to watch you leave here in the middle of the night to go to her.
And then, amidst all this, they still have to deal with Randall. I would have preferred it so much if they had decided to focus more on Brad's dilemma than focus on Randall's antics, because a lot of things were coming to light. It was proven that the child was not even Randall's. And let me just take 2 seconds to mention this. I was proud of Tyler Perry in this moment, more for myself than anything, because, and I haven't said this yet, I did not like Alex. I don't know what it is. I couldn't stand her either. I think it started after she was caught. And I remember thinking in season 1, how funny would it be if it turns out that Randall wasn't even her first guy? Because Randall was so arrogant in how he seduced her, how he was able to turn this good girl bad. But I remember her giving Brad a diary, and I was thinking in my head, what first-time cheater is writing things like this in their diary? This sounds like something a serial cheater would do. And I thought, wouldn't it be funny if it's later proven that she was a serial cheater and Randall was not even the first? I really wish they focused on Brad's dilemma, Alex's other men being brought out, and Marcy's role in this problem. It would have been much more bearable if there was less of Randall and more of that. I don't mean take him out, because obviously he's the main antagonist, but if you give me Randall in bits and pieces, I would be able to digest him. With Esperanza and Steven, all I can say is that Steven and Esperanza's relationship was a breath of fresh air to this series, season 3 and 4, and the beginning of season 5, before it was wasted. Esperanza has a relationship with Eddie, and she gave him a daughter, and it looks like even after all these years of being separated, Eddie still had a hold on her. She begins to get attracted to another co-worker who is Steven. I personally thought they were adorable, and like I said, dialogue sometimes doesn't feel very good in Tyler Perry series. But I think when it comes to Steven and Esperanza, they were trying at least to make them sound sensible. After they get caught by Eddie and there's a fight, Esperanza tries telling Steven that he doesn't know anything about her, and to prove it, she starts asking him questions upon questions, which he answers.
What's my favorite color?
You don't have one.
How would you know that?
And she told him it's changed because of him.
When did you get a favorite color?
Today.
I found that to be adorable. Jail me. I loved it. And their continued interaction really sold me on the relationship because Steven was everything her other boyfriends were not. And the highlight of that comes when Eddie finally pushes the line with Steven. Eddie has this behavior of always trying to intimidate Esperanza's boyfriends and is always trying to insert himself in her life even though this animal is already far, far away from her dating life. And when he finally pushed Steven, I was so grateful because for 4 seasons, no one had given this loudmouth the beating he deserved. Eddie kept doing stupid things time and time again. And I just kept thinking to myself, with his behavior, with how he speaks, with the things he does, how is no one constantly beating this guy? Why was it that he and Randall were allowed to run rampant in this series with not enough people clocking them in the face? But that is what made me love the episode in season 4 when Steven finally gets his hands on him. The reason being, Steven had only fought with Eddie once, and that was because Eddie attacked him. In all other cases, Steven was calm.
I pay the mortgage here. See you, bud. I ain't going until I see you leave this property.
Steven was always giving Eddie back the same energy. Whenever Eddie was running his mouth, Steven would give it back to him. But he was never angry. He rarely raised his voice. And he also sort of showed that he wasn't one to be intimidated. So when Steven finally reached his breaking point, another set of decent dialogue from Tyler Perry.
Lucian, he left here to go get Eddie. He went to the pub to go find Eddie.
Alright, I'm still waiting for the problem.
I could have clapped. Steven gets attacked outside Esperanza's house, and he fights off the guys, and he goes to find Eddie.
I've never seen him like that before.
And Eddie should hide.
And when Steven finally found Eddie, the joy in me. Let me show you how this scene played out to me, because sometimes I speak as I watch something. So when this happened, this was literally what I said. Shut your ass up. And then Steven goes ahead to give him at least 6 or 7 or 8 rapid fire punches, and for each successive hit, I just felt like I was finally getting justice. I mentioned how much I disliked Randall. I disliked Eddie just as much, if not more. So to watch him finally meet someone that did not take his crap, it not only made me feel like I finally got some justice in this series, it showed even more how much of a coward Eddie was. He just liked to run his mouth, but he could never back it up. He did a lot to people in season 1 and got away with it, but even after all that Steven did, Eddie could only continue to run his mouth. He could never fight Steven back. He could never go and show Steven the same energy he was showing everyone else in the series, and I love that.
Go that way.
I don't think so. What you gonna do, hit me?
No, I think I can call Steven so he can do all that.
And it was a stepping stone in the right direction because it proved that Eddie was a coward, and once you stood your ground to him, Eddie would falter. And I so hoped that they would play on this when going into season 5. But Tyler Perry does not know how to do this. I'm sorry if that sounds harsh, but that is what it feels like. Steven also started to encourage some courage in Esperanza, where he tells her that she can't be allowing Eddie to do what he's been doing continuously without standing up to him. That if she kept making excuses, Eddie would keep disrespecting her. Eddie would never take her seriously, and it wasn't something she found easy, but she finally understood that Steven was right, and Esperanza began to step up to Eddie.
If you put this in front of a judge, I will have hell rain down on your life. You hear me? You'll never see me good again.
Get ready for it then, because I'm calling my lawyer when I leave here.
So I felt good for Esperanza that she finally had a guy that was decent and also wanted the best for her. And that is what leads us into season 5. The biggest problem with season 5 was the amount of plot holes that led to season 5. The reason this was a problem for me is because all the stories that were forgotten, all the stories that were set up, could have given season 5 a better ending if anyone had just cared enough to take note of it. And the first person on the list of people who needed a better ending is Marcy, Brad and Randall's story. Randall from the beginning of the series is an egotistical narcissist who sees himself as above others, and in his mind it gives him the permission to do things that he obviously would not like it being done to him. The biggest example of this comes with his cheating on Marcy with her best friend and their next door neighbor in his shed, technically under her nose. Then when he finds out about her relationship with Brad, okay, he didn't find out, he wasn't told. He sees her having sex with Brad and he's offended and hurt and has the audacity to tell Marcy that
I never would have done that in your face.
Is that what you say to make yourself feel better?
of course you wouldn't have done that to her face, because if you had done it to her face, she would have divorced you immediately. The only reason you kept it a secret was because if it wasn't a secret, you wouldn't even have a marriage.
You crazy ass bastard!
There were times when he would offend or hurt Marcy and she would go away sad and crying. Then he would smile and watch her leave and be talking to Alex. What do you mean I never meant to hurt you? Who do you think you are? I'm digressing, I'm sorry. That was his character, and it wasn't just with Marcy, it was with everyone else. He showed it to Kelly, he showed it to Natalie, showed it to Lucian, showed it to Eddie. He always felt like he was above everyone. And in season 5, it ends badly for him when he tries to, I think, assault Marcy, and she ends up defending herself, and in anger, she ends up killing him. And then Tyler Perry had their storyline end with Brad dressing Alex in Marcy's clothes that are covered in blood, having Marcy change and sort of framing Alex for the murder of Randall. It still boils my blood when I think about it, because in season 4 they had the perfect setup to end Randall while not destroying the story. In season 4, a new couple moves into the neighborhood, and Randall can't help himself when he notices that the wife has a medical condition. So he now starts to turn his stupidity to her, taunting her and pushing her to the limit. The first time her husband finds out about it, he trashes Randall's place. Randall doesn't stop. He keeps going after the wife until she finally lands in the hospital. Now, let's start to rewrite season 5. Randall's job is not only being a witness in court. I think Randall is also supposed to be a therapist or some kind of psychiatrist. So if he gets ratted out for antagonizing this medically ill woman, there is a chance he can lose his license or at least get fired from his job. Randall's character did not have to die. He could just have ended by losing everything he had. So when he kidnapped Marcy and dragged her into his house, I would have preferred if, as he was about to hurt her, the husband just bursts in and begins to beat him out of anger for what he did to his wife. And Brad would hear the commotion and come in to see what has happened to Marcy and take her out of the house. When she is safely in his place, he would come and stop the other guy from beating Randall to death. And then the husband of the woman Randall sent to the hospital will now be able to use the information his wife gave him along with Natalie to make sure that Randall loses his job. I feel like that would have been a perfect ending, to have Randall completely shattered and destroyed while also leaving Marcy in peace. That lady had been through so much, and the ending Tyler Perry saw fit to give her after he introduced so many interesting ways to end the story, was that she killed Randall and then they framed Alex for his death. Alex had already kind of ruined herself with her drinking and the things she said. It would have been so much better if she sobered up in the house and Brad told her once again that he was going to fight for his kids and he was going to take each and every one of them away from Alex because she wasn't a stable person. But as unjust as that ending was with regards to Marcy, it was not as unjust as the ending with Esperanza, Steven, and Eddie. Back to the plot holes and forgotten characters. In the beginning of the series, in season 1, Eddie was doing a lot of sketchy things to other police officers. I think 2 of them went missing. I don't know what happened to the last guy that was an addict. I can't remember, but he was under suspicion. But every time they tried to arrest or detain him, Eddie will find his own way out. In season 3, Eddie is introduced to a new opponent in the form of an old schoolmate of Randall's. And in retaliation to something they did to him, I think they suffocated him, then chained him up in Randall's house. Eddie decides that he's going to kidnap Randall's friend and torture him. And after the torture, Randall's friend promises Eddie that he is going to make sure that Eddie suffers slow.
How much is all this going to cost me?
To get even with him, I would pay you.
Why does this hurt me? Throughout the entire series, Eddie has been this pompous jerk that does whatever he likes because he believes he can get away with it. But they start showing that he actually fears something. He fears being discovered. He fears being found out. He fears having someone stand up to him. It's where Steven came in. Steven represented someone who would not take his BS. And so, Eddie doesn't mess with Steven. Eddie messed with Randall's friend, and then Randall's friend decided that he was going to get into Eddie's business, and he was going to locate, and he mentioned by name the police officers that Eddie had hurt and put in the hospital in season 1 who went missing around season 2. And you could see the fear and the worry in Eddie's eyes. Esperanza started stepping up to Eddie too, no longer threatening but actually putting in the work to get their daughter away from him. Eddie was in a tough spot in season 5.
Let's see. How about Pete? I know you know Joey. Andrew?
And ask me how they decided to end his story. Randall's friend has some bosses that had a problem with Eddie. So what they decide to do is, I'm trying not to laugh, they kidnap his daughter, and in the process of the kidnapping, his daughter is killed and dumped in a bin, and Eddie finds her in there. And Eddie responds by killing Randall's friend and then going to give the news to Esperanza. I'm sorry, who proceeds to shoot him. So Eddie dies, and Esperanza is the one that killed him. This was the most pathetic, uninspired, thoughtless end to a story that had other options. Why kidnap the daughter? Why add that part of the story at all? Why would you introduce a character like Randall's friend? Have him say things like, I know what you did to Andrew and the other guys. I'm going to help Esperanza and then I'm going to ruin your job. And then you end it with Eddie killing him and Esperanza killing Eddie. What kind of weak ending is that? Why not this instead? Randall's friend does have the evidence. If you can't get the actors that acted the characters in season 1 and 2 to come back, You can make anything up that you want in terms of audio. You can have them off screen confess to the things that Eddie did to them. The one that was shot could confess to the fact that Eddie threatened him and attacked him in the hospital, and he could also mention the stuff he saw on the DVD player that no one was able to see except for him. And as for the cop he ran over when Alex was looking for her child, he could also have had an audio confession stating that Eddie was the one who ran him over, shot him, and threatened his life. That way, Eddie's job is done. Then, Eddie could spiral, and in the spiral, he could spiral towards Esperanza because that is what he usually does. Not only has he lost his job, but now the FBI now have everything they have to arrest him. He goes to attack her, and his daughter is there to see it. I know they haven't shown her much in the story, but I have seen her a few times. And before the end of the season, the daughter was upset with Esperanza because she was seeing another man and could replace her father. Why not have the daughter now see Eddie for who he was, a tyrant and a bully, and you can have him hold them hostage. In his anger, the FBI is coming down on him, the DEA who he claimed he was working for was coming down on him, and you can have him either be killed by the FBI or finally go into prison for all the nonsense that he did. You don't have to make Esperanza the person that has already suffered time and time again. What is with Tyler Perry and that storyline? I'm not going to divert from my point. The reason I didn't like season 5 is because it was announced that season 5 would be the final season, and I had already up to that point put up with a lot of nonsense from this series, only for me to be so disappointed and let down by the route they decided to take. I don't even want to touch Kelly's story. If you haven't watched the series, God bless you. Don't do it. But Kelly was in prison from season 3 to season 5. The ending fell flat. And the sad part about a story that didn't have much going for it is that if it had a good ending, it would make everything else worth it. Because you just know that even though Randall was this annoying character, even though there were so many plot holes, a lot of things were forgotten, the ending makes up for that. But the ending of If Loving You Is Wrong made the entire series worse in my eyes. That is basically it for this video, and I would see you on the next one.